question, my lord, is where is November? That's my only question, as I am writing the answers of the witness.
Yes,
My lord,
can we conclude this?
Indeed, sir, my lord.
This argument.
Quite briefly, indeed, sir, my lord. The witness before court, when I inquired of him to indicate the specific date, it was with reference to the bottom of the transcriptions, where there's a reference number, also inclusive of the case number being 55.2020, under scroll 2021.11.22. It is on each and every page from page 1 of the transcripts, my lord.
Please, now that date of 22/11/21, is that the date of the interview?
No, my lord.
What is it then?
The correct date of the interview is the 22nd of September 2021.
Now, what is this 22/11?
Indeed, sir, my lord, that is where it will be taken further. However, we are just placing the specific dates on record in light of what 14.3 indicated, that it had been exposed or leaked to the media on the 28th of November, with the 22nd happening first and thereafter only the 28th, which does not make logical sense. As well as...
But all these things got any bearing on question whether this court has got jurisdiction to hear case number 17?
My lord, it does, in that this had been questioned of the previous witness with regards to the specific recordings, and the fact that it had brought forward with the jurisdiction also prosecutorial misconduct, and this is answering that leg of the jurisdictional aspect, because this again was put up to the previous witness indicating about the recordings, and this witness is finalizing the matter that it is not the state's recordings, and that we have before us with regards to Exhibit 11 that was very graciously handed in by my learned colleague.
What is really relevant is we know now it's not the state recording. This recording was apparently made by Mr. Lotta herself.
As a court
and all parties concerned are evident that this transcript is a true reflection of what transpired at the interview, except for some things that was omitted. Isn't that all that is really relevant?
My lord, up until this point, it wasn't that all the parties had been at Eden, that it was in fact Major Lotta that had taken the recordings, my lord. If that is the inference that we can draw, and my learned colleagues are happy for that, then definitely, my lord, state will leave this point right here.
Well, this is what General Gerber has testified.
Indeed, sir, my lord.
And it's open for Ms. Lotta's legal representative, Advocate Macapella, to prosecute him if he places that in dispute.
As a court, please, my lord.
Yes. Can we then move on?
Indeed, sir, my lord. We can put this to bed, depending on obviously what then is elicited during cross-examination, if we may reserve the right to potentially revert back to this, depending on what transpires during cross-examination. Thank you, my lord. General Gerber, further to this, it had been indicated that there had been a degradation of Major Lotta, accused person number 17's rights during these interviews, and that she was exposed to mental torture. What can you say about that?
My lord, myself, I totally deny that. From my side and from the lead investigator, Captain Carlitz, we were actually very aware of ensuring that everything is done according to her rights. We bent over backwards to accommodate her in every request, every way she was treated, the way in which we questioned her, the way in which we posed questions. Everything was done in an amicable manner. If I also go through the transcriptions, that would also verify and confirm the way that we had treated Major Lotta all along during the interview.
The actual interview of the 22nd of September 2021, what was your role there?
I was just basically an observer, and then as questions were posed to Neutrality, most of my questions were either clarity-seeking questions or trying to assist to let her understand the questions in a more simpler manner so that she could then answer in terms of a better understanding of the question where it seemed that she may not understand the question.
It is also further intimated that there was an intimidation factor with regards to this interview due to the FBI being involved. What would your response be to that?
No, that is absolutely denied. In actual fact, I think it would have given her more comfort as the person in the room was a female. And that is why she was present as well, that it is not two men and one female sitting in an interview, and it would have given her, we assume, that little bit of comfort to know that there's another female person in the room. She did not partake in any processes, any questioning at all.
When you say she did not partake, who are you referring to?
That is FBI agent Denise Bean.
It has also been intimated before the court that your entire trip to the United States of America was in an attempt to either have Neutrality implicate herself or implicate accused number 13. What is your response to that?
No, Your Worship. The intent of the trip was to obtain an affidavit from Neutrality as a state witness. Obviously, we had, or Captain Carlitz had prepared a file of questions and of documentary evidence which we would have used in our interview with Neutrality. So the sole purpose was to obtain a witness statement and to use Neutrality, depending on what is written in the statement, as a state witness in the subsequent trial.
When you say that you would have used this particular file in the interview, why using those words? Why would have used?
Because the interview never progressed to that point where we could physically show her documents and elicit responses from that in terms of explaining those specific, and if I say that, I refer to emails that Captain Carlin had prepared to present to Neutrality.
In what way do you mean that the interview never progressed to that level?
Well, we started off in the general trance, introducing ourselves, trying to explain, making her comfortable, etc. And then we started, or Captain Carlitz started posing questions, which I then also posed questions to her in terms of clarifying certain issues. And the responses that we received from Neutrality in terms of her answers was not such that we could progress to eventually get to the point where we can provide her evidence to say, what is your response on this?
And you had earlier indicated that this particular interview had come to an end with you further giving her a warning with regard to legal representation.
Yes, that was around about lunchtime when the interview ended, as she indicated that she had to go to college still the afternoon. So once again there we also accommodated her request to us. Yes.
What then transpired between yourself and Captain Collins with regards to after this interview was concluded?
Well, after the interview, we obviously discussed the matter, and it was an agreement that we are not getting satisfactory answers on our questions that we posed to her. Even elementary questions were not answered. So it was clear to us that she was not willing to work with us in terms of supplying us a witness statement. We then agreed that we would speak to Advocate Denason and get his view on the matter. We did subsequently give him a call, and we had a discussion and explained to him what transpired during the course of the day and the witness's hostility, if I can use that word towards us. We then also discussed that the following day we would again try and see in terms of treating her as a witness, but depending on what transpired, if this trend was continuing, we would then obviously make a decision and review our position as using her as a state witness.
The day of the 23rd of September then dawned. What transpired then?
Well, we picked Ms. Charlotta up from the train station in the morning. We proceeded to the South African Embassy. We had to hand in all our cell phones, which were handed in and placed in secure lockage. We then were taken to a room by I think it's the liaison officer at the embassy, where we then were given a room where we once again continued with our interview. The process that transpired was not much different from the first day, and it was clear that Mechalota was not going to give us a statement as a state witness.
What then transpired?
It was then decided by myself and Captain Carlos that henceforth we would then view her as a suspect in the matter. Captain Carlos then proceeded to take a warning statement from Mechalota.
At that point, what was your role?
I was just an observer at that point. Captain Carlos then took her through the document, which is a SAPS document that contains a warning statement, which was developed in terms of the Constitution, so that all rights of people are adequately explained and given to the suspect. At some stage, Mechalota wanted to consult a legal representative in terms of to explain what this document was about and what was the purpose of this document. I then proceeded to the liaison officer and requested him to see if he can find or if there were any legal representatives at the embassy that may be able to assist in explaining this process to Mechalota. there was none available, and I indicated such to her, and we continued with the warning statement. The statement was then finalized, and we then left the embassy.
General, the previous evening of the 22nd, or the afternoon, my apologies, you had provided or Captain Carlitz had provided the advice to perhaps seek legal representation. Was this issue addressed on the morning of the 23rd of September with her?
If I recall correctly, she was asked whether she did consult with a legal practitioner, and she indicated that she had not.
You indicated that the warning statement itself was finalized. Was there any actual statement given by Mayor Chilota to both yourself and Captain Carlitz?
No, there was no statement obtained.
It was also questioned of Captain Carlitz with regards to the procedure that the warning statement was still continued with to finalize even after you weren't able to source legal representation. Can you explain that process?
Yes, that is correct. There was no further questions asked to her, no answers requested from her in terms of anything relating to the matter. It was merely a case of, do you want to make a statement, yes or no? She indicated no, she does not want to make a statement, and that she would consult a legal representative. And if I'm correct, she indicated that she would provide a statement at a later stage, and that was all that was contained in her statement.
Would you indicate that your treatment of Mayor Chilota as both a witness as well as when she was a suspect was different in any other way you've treated other witnesses and suspects?
No, Your Worship. No, my Lord. Not at all. She was treated throughout the process. We treated her the same, even when she then, it was clear to us that she was not willing to cooperate with us. Even taking of the warning statement was also done in a fashion that none of her rights were violated. We were obviously, again, as I say, treated her extremely well during this whole process.
General, much was made of the fact that questions were posed to Mayor Chilota with regards to specifically naming accused number 13, which she did not do, and that is why you had chosen to make her a suspect.
No, Your Worship, I disagree with that. The purpose was to get a statement, and obviously one has to ask questions which you elicit an answer from. Based on the answer that you receive, you would then pose a next question. So when it was said to us, and I specifically can remember the office of the Premier, even myself on several occasions tried to explain to her, but an office cannot give you an instruction. It must be someone, a person must give you that instruction. So even if she provided the name of, I think there's a Miss Janet Kay that works at the Premier's office, that would be written down in the statement, and that would be something that we would follow up in terms of coming back to South Africa and approaching then whoever was named in that specific statement as being part of the process. So at no stage was it specifically aimed to implicate Mr. Magashule in this matter. There is enough evidence in the case docket at that stage which had already implicated Mr. Magashule. So it was basically a question of getting her statement as a witness to then corroborate what we already had as evidence, and that was not forthcoming. But at no stage was she pressed to come forward and say, Mr. Magashule. And that was not my view how it took place.
The exhibit bundle before you also contains Exhibit R, Annexure R, my apologies. And this refers specifically to a statement made by Major Lauter with regard to the Zondo Commission. Do you see the same?
I see it.
It was also questioned as to the fact that through this particular statement that it was completely exculpatory towards both Mayor Chilota as well as accused number 13, Mr. Magashule.
I have not seen the statement, so I do not know what the contents thereof is, my lord.
My lord, I see it is now already 11:45. If perhaps we can just stand down, that this witness may just make himself aware of this particular affidavit, and that we then can proceed and finalize after tea.
My lord, before we adjourn, if I may, I need to, before the Lordship makes the ruling, I see the journal, the witness has been referring to a pink notebook to refresh his memory. We haven't been given access to that document. I'd like access to that document, my lord, before your Lordship adjourns, that we can see it during the adjournment.
My lord, with pleasure. There's written 2209 September, and that's all that's written in the book. But you can make copies if you'd like to.
Nothing else.
Nothing else in the book. It is for me to make notes if a question is asked that I can write just for my own notes here, but there's nothing in the diary. It's completely...
You're not refreshing your memory from
Not at all, your wish, my lord. Not at all.
You will have a problem if there's nothing in that.
I think I would, sir.
If we may see it, my lord, I do appreciate it.
You want to see this?
Yes, my lord. During the adjournment, my lord, there's no... Thank you.
Please, I just might have it back. Maybe write something in, my lord, that
With pleasure.
should not be there.
Pleasure.
You're not going to say this long appearance. You read through that. According to our agenda, 11:30.
All right.
That's my personal feelings, mate. Please.